English learners, today's lessons will be one of my favorites because we will be talking about the different adjectives that people use to describe food. So we're going to talk about adjectives that people use to describe the taste of food. Adjectives people say when they like or dislike food. And some very helpful adjectives that you can use when you're in a restaurant and you want to tell the waiter or waitress how you want your food prepared, what you can and cannot eat, and so on. So if this sort of topic interests you, keep watching. The first adjective we have is seasoned. We use this word seasoned when we want to describe food that has many different herbs and spices, maybe salt and pepper added to it to give it some extra flavor, right? Most of us like our food seasoned, but we can also have unseasoned food, and that means there are no herbs, spices, salt, whatever added to our food. You would probably prefer your food to be seasoned rather than unseasoned, right? And then we have this word processed. So foods can be processed if it went through many different changes from the time that it was grown or alive to the time that you are eating that food, okay? So most foods go through some sort of process, right? When you buy strawberries, they might be washed off, they might be put in a package. That was some sort of process. But when we say processed foods, we're typically describing foods that went through a lot of different changes, right? So many changes that they probably don't even look the same as they did when they were alive or growing to the time that you're eating them. So think of this hot dog, right? So when this hot dog came from the pig or the chicken, it didn't look anything like it does now in that little tube shape, right? That's because it's a very processed food. Same thing with these packaged cookies and chips. These are all very processed foods, not very good for you. Then we have this adjective organic, and this describes food that is not made with these unnatural chemicals. In the United States, a lot of farms grow food that have unhealthy chemicals added to it because we want to produce as much food as possible in the shortest amount of time. But if your food is organic, it doesn't have these unnatural chemicals, and it's supposedly better for the environment and for your health. And then we have this word kosher, which describes food that is acceptable to eat according to Jewish law. It might have a little sticker on the packaging saying kosher. So if you are Jewish, you are probably already familiar with this term, but just know it is also the same word in English. Same thing with halal. So this describes food that is acceptable to eat. If you go to a restaurant or a grocery store, they might say that the foods they sell are halal. So it's the same word in English. And then we have this word raw. This describes food that is just uncooked. So you can have raw meat. Hopefully you don't eat raw meat. Or you can have raw vegetables, which are very good for you. And then we have this phrase, blank free. So you can have dairy-free food. You can have nut-free food, which is what I need because I am allergic. I cannot eat nuts. So we're focusing on that phrase, blank free. It just means whatever we're looking at does not contain that ingredient. So when I'm looking for food, I want to see that it says nut-free, meaning it does not contain nuts. Then we have this word gamey. This describes food that smells like or tastes like wild game. So game are wild animals that we hunt, and they have a bit of a stronger taste than the milder taste of domesticated animals. So when we say that food has a gamey taste or a gamey smell, that's what we're talking about. It's a bit stronger. It doesn't taste like domesticated animals. We typically describe meat, or sometimes even vegetables, as being tender. This means that it is easy to chew. So you probably like your steak or your chicken to be very tender, easy to cut, easy to chew. At least I know I like my chicken and steak that way. Food that is not tender can be described as tough. So I do not like my chicken to be tough. It's difficult to chew, difficult to cut. It's just not fun to work with. And then we have this word bland. It describes food that doesn't have much taste or flavor. And here we have a cracker, which is okay if it's bland. Most crackers are supposed to be bland. You're probably putting dip on it to give it some flavor. You might be having it with cheese. So crackers don't really need to have much flavor. It's okay if they're bland. But what if you had a chicken breast that was bland, no taste or flavor? You probably wouldn't like that much. And then we have this word lean, and this describes food that has very little fat on it. So foods like chicken breast, foods like fish, they don't have much fat. So a chicken thigh and usually pork, these are not very lean meats. They have lots of fat on them. And now we're focusing on this phrase, blank friendly. This means that a certain food can be eaten by said groups. If your food is vegan friendly, that means that vegans can eat that food. If it's vegetarian friendly, it means that vegetarians can eat that food. If it's diabetic friendly, that means that people who are diabetic can eat that food. So if you're in a restaurant or if you're at a grocery store and you see that your food is vegetarian friendly and you are a vegetarian, then you can probably grab that food and eat it. This word stale we use to describe food that is not fresh. We often use it to talk about foods that come from grains. So if your bread is hard, it's most likely stale. If you're eating cereal and it's not crunchy anymore, it's most likely stale. Same thing with chips. If your chips aren't crunchy and they're old, you can call them stale. And then we have palatable and unpalatable. Palatable food is okay because it's good, you can eat it, it's acceptable, it's palatable. But unpalatable food is food that is not acceptable. If you go into a restaurant and you order a hamburger and it's undercooked, not the way you like it, it is dry, it is cold, you can say that that hamburger is just unpalatable, and you can ask your waiter or waitress to take it back and cook you up a new one. So light can be used to describe food that is small, not very heavy. So maybe in the morning before you work out, you might want to have a light breakfast or a small breakfast. Or maybe after your dinner, you might ask for a light snack, meaning a small snack, one that's not very filling. Next, we have this adjective, citrusy. So this is that taste that is given off by those fruit that have the thick skins that are very juicy. So grapefruit, lemon, oranges. They have a distinct sort of sweet, tangy, juicy taste. We call these tastes citrusy. Then we have this word succulent, and succulent just means very juicy. So you can use it to describe your steak, or maybe your turkey is very succulent, meaning it's very juicy, which is something that I like. You can even use it to describe fruits. You have a succulent strawberry. You have a succulent apple. Our next word is appetizing. This describes food that looks like it will taste delicious. So look at these pancakes right here. I would say they look very appetizing, right? They look very fluffy towards the middle, a little bit crispy on the outside, and they're topped with these nice succulent fruits. This whole dish just looks appetizing. Next word is rich. This describes food that is very heavy, probably very thick, and has lots of fat. So this chocolate cake right here is very heavy. It looks like it'll make you very full after you eat it. It probably, or it definitely has a lot of fat. It's very rich. And next we have this word overpowering. This describes a taste or a smell that is too strong. So you might have this soup here And you might think that it tastes pretty good, but the onions are too overpowering. It's too strong for this soup. And next is a phrase, to hit the spot. If a food hits the spot, that is a good thing. That means that you are very satisfied after eating that food. So if you look at this picture, you can tell that this man had some food that really hit the spot. His stomach is flowing over his pants. There's no more of that food on the plate except the crumbs. Whatever he had really hit the spot. Next, we have this word exquisite. And you might see exquisite foods in fancy, expensive restaurants. This just means that the food looks very nice. It's very well prepared and presented. And then we have this word decadent. It describes food that is very pleasing and very enjoyable to eat. Have you ever had food that was so delicious that you almost felt bad about eating it, like you were enjoying it way too much? That means that your food was very decadent. You might notice a pattern with the pancakes. I just really love pancakes. But while I'm eating pancakes, I'm enjoying it so much. It's just that delicious. It's decadent. We will also talk about how you can say that you want your meat cooked if you're in a restaurant. So very quickly, we will go over how to answer the question, how do you want your meat cooked? So it goes from a scale of rare to medium well to well done usually. There might be a few others, but that's the typical scale we use here. Rare is the least cooked and the most pink on the inside. If your steak is well done or if your food is well done, then there should not be any pink in it at all. How do you like your hamburger to be cooked? Let me know in the comments. All right, so that is the end of today's video. Different adjectives to describe food. I hope you learned something today. If you found this video useful, make sure to give me a like. Feel free to leave a comment. If you think someone you know might find this video useful, feel free to click the share icon below. And until next time, English learners.